Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming to the last quarter of FoamFest Live 2020. We have another change of host for you. We will now be joining Drac with his overarching vendor showcase. And for the first segment, we will be joining Krijn from Blastertime and Luke from Out of Darts, where they will be tempting you for the next 45 minutes with the wonderful shinies that they produce in their shops and attempting to empty your wallets. And in competition with our raffle. So we will take you to their Drac in his studio in just a bit now.
We could be anywhere, even on the internet. All right. Hopefully that does it. A little bit of a growing pains here digitally as well. Oh no, it's Drac. I assume that means that we're live. No picture. We'll get there, guys. Where is he? It's a secret vampire hiccup sometimes. You need special cameras to capture our image. But we're following the vampire into the darkness. A very dangerous proposition. So apparently you guys can hear me, but you can't see me, just like old school Drac. I love it. All right, so welcome all. Thanks for sticking around with us, live from the coffin. We're currently in our fundraiser, 2,500 pounds. Well done, everyone. If we can get to 2,750, Captain Redbeard will shave off his beard live. And I know that we've had a lot of fun hair challenges. My sweet little sister's going to wind up looking like an elite dart before too long. I think it would be interesting if we could ever convince, if there's a pledge level that we could do to get Luke without his traditional kind of sort of spikes pompadour thing going on.
I'm down for that.
There you go. Any amount of donation and we'll get Luke de-plumed. No shaving, no nonsense. Just I want to know what it's like without the gel. Luke After Dark. We're also joined by Krijn from Blastertime UK, and these are two major distributors in different parts of the world for our hobby. They both provide you with all of the little accoutrement bits and bobs. When you're missing a screw halfway into your build, when you need that length of wire or that piece of heat shrink or perhaps that select fire board, whatever it may or may not be, these are the guys that you throw orders big and small at to get those parts on time so that you can finish up in time for events. So I'm going to turn it over to them. I want to talk about why they got into what they do. Wait, what is this? Drac without long hair. This is short for me, boys.
Yeah, that's the trim and professional look.
Exactly. This is business casual. This is just grown out from Toy Fair this year in February. Like, no need to get haircuts in quarantine, fellas. But I kind of want to give you guys both the floor. I want to find out what the flight path was. Like right now, it's easy to take the snapshot and see like you are huge distributors in our space. You went out and took this big risk, and you have all this inventory and holding cost, and you're each in warehouses now. And I'm so excited that you exist in the forms that you exist, because it means that the hobby has grown to a point where it's real now. Like 10 years ago, this was me in a college dorm room going to Lowe's buying epoxy and brass and trying to cut copper tubing down. And now you can just buy the part, which is very, very dynamic and exciting, but it wasn't always that way. So how did we get here?
Well, I can kick it off, I guess. I've been doing this just a hair longer than Krijn.
That seems fair.
I haven't been doing this that long, but even when I started, there were only a small handful of 3D printing creators and custom things that you could go buy. At that point, it would have been maybe Slug was doing some custom stuff. Containment Crew was around. And then, of course, Orange Mod Works was sort of defunct when I got into this. Like they had kind of fallen out and weren't doing as much. But it all happened by accident for me. I just started making stuff and people started banging down my door to buy it. And here I am 5.5 years later, quit my day job, which I liked. And this has turned on into a full-time gig. And not only that, but there are literally like hundreds of sellers now. You go on Etsy, and I mean, there's at least 50 just on Etsy. People selling blasters, parts, prints, and there's I think that even speaks more than a couple of us going full time. The fact that there are so many people doing this, like as a part-time side hustle thing, I think it, as you mentioned, Drac, it really talks about our hobby growing. And I've seen it just balloon in this time, despite numerous other shops I'm in competition with. I think there's room for all of us, and it's going to keep growing year on year. And I'm excited to grow along with it.
I'm very partial to the phrase that the rising tide raises all boats. And so I'm a big believer that success in one area leads to success in others. In part, like the success of your web store, companies like Blastertime, Foam Blast, Containment Crew, et cetera, and so forth, whether they've been here for a long time. And you mentioned Orange ModWorks. I remember when Orange ModWorks like happened. I remember getting a call from Jim Soto one day. He tried calling like the big 3 YouTubers at the time. And of those, I was the only one who had a phone number listed, which at the time was fine. Now would be a horrible mistake. It used to be up. I'm not even kidding. And it was like kind of crazy. It was a wild concept. Jim Soda is, I think his heritage is like part Vietnamese. And if I'm getting that wrong, my sincerest apologies, but that's why they make all of their things in Vietnam. And so he kind of had like the built-in family hybrid idea of like, okay, well, there are people who want these things that are relatively simple, in my mind at least. It turns out that they were not, which is why Orange ModWorks went through that big lull period there. And brought them over, and I remember it was surreal to the degree that we've got like Ajit Paj with Orange ModWorks stickers in his announcement about like internet companies and destroying the internet, all things considered. But no, it's kind of wild watching like kit modding really, and for a period of time there, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, but for a period of time it was really wild because kit modding had like this stigma, and I always thought it was so silly. It was like, what do you mean this guy doesn't have a Dremel and he's not carving feed ramps for his hopper into a Y from PVC? Is it real if he pulled it out of a box and installed it? And then I think all of that kind of disappeared real quick when we saw the hobby explode. Like,
yeah, and honestly, in my opinion, I don't think without kit modding, with sort of plug and play modding, we wouldn't have the hobby the size as it is, and it wouldn't be growing like it is.
Because you like look at airsoft and paintball. There aren't modders in airsoft and paintball. They aren't called modders. They're techs, which is what they call the guys who fix broken things, but nobody's making custom things. Like nobody's doing small businesses the way that you two do. And it's just been really, really awesome because I think the in the spirit of the rising tides quote, like we wouldn't have an ocean this big if it weren't for the waters growing this high. So with that said, I've been talking to Luke for a second here. Krijn, I want to find out how you stumbled into this wild and wacky world of misfit toys.
So I wanted to ask Luke a question first. Like, what was the year you started with selling items?
You know, it's a good question. Let me look, because I was just about to write my very first customer like a thank you email and just see if they were still nerfing. But I think it was literally like February of 16. That's how not that long ago. It's crazy. Wow. That was my first sale.
I feel like kind of like the new kid on the block. Because I started in 2015, which is basically before you then.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, but
very cool.
To be honest, that was not with modding. I started basically, I saw other people selling darts in the Netherlands, so I thought I can do that too. So I started importing darts, and that quickly got out of hands really fast. Later, I got some worker parts from what is called a Chinese website, which you have to use a forwarder, stuff like that.
Pick one. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
I was joking. You're like a Chinese website that you get parts from, and I'm like, pick one. It almost doesn't matter. They're all the same.
Yeah, but that was. I don't think the parts were that readily available then, but I got the parts.
It was much harder.
Yeah, but I got in contact with workers, started selling springs and stuff like that, and basically I started selling the parts, and then I was like, that's kind of fun. And then I started putting a spring in a recon. And then after a while, I found the guys from this Nerf community. And then it started snowballing out of control.
That was your big mistake, is when you started getting involved in it. You could have just sold parts to these guys, us goofballs. Now you're one of us.
Yeah.
How unfortunate for you.
It's way more fun.
It is more fun, and I think it would be difficult to do what you guys do earnestly if you weren't as involved, as intimately familiar with the community, with the events, with the wars, and you both support large events, you both travel to large events. I know Luke in particular, we were having a private conversation about it at one point. He was gutted because he's like, I really want to do this thing. Are you going to do this thing? We should do this thing. And it was just pick an event in North America that we were talking about at the time. And then he called me back and he's like, wow, this would be like my 9th Nerf event of the year that I have to travel to. And so we're not even talking about like, oh, Luke goes to 9 events a year and half a dozen of them are, in his state an hour away. It's like Luke was, I will fly to 9 events this year. And it's even that little facet, none of these things in the ecosystem could happen independently of one another. And you mentioned you got in 2015 kind of from a distributor perspective, and I know that Luke got in kind of on the hobbyist vector, and you've both reached the same point, which I want to touch on later on, which is this mega warehouse distributor for your entire region, which just so much respect for the balls that it takes. I want to know where you guys buy your pants that you rented warehouses for Nerf toys. But it's pretty incredible, and I think that the growth of the industry, the growth of the aftermarket, the growth of the event space is all interconnected and interlaced and tied together. And so I'm really glad that we're here today, since we can't be together in person in the UK talking about the same thing. But I have kind of a specific question that I think will be of interest to the, gosh, what an incredible viewer base we have right now. And I want to ask, I'm very curious. Don't give me an easy answer here. What is the item? And it's a double faceted question. So what is the item that convinced you okay, cause I know there was a point where you sat down and you were looking at the orders, or you were looking at a box full of worker parts or whatever it was. And you were like, this is going to be a thing. I have to talk to my wife. This is officially serious. I want to know what that item was. And then I want to know today, in April of 2020, what is the item? The item that you sell more of than anything else? And,
well, I can start with that. In the early stages, I had sold off all my homebrewing equipment, got out of one crazy obsessed hobby into another. And so I bought one 3D printer, and I still had money left over. And that pretty soon, when you're prototyping, turned into 2. And then it turned into 4, and I was just casually selling some things. And then I was about ready to purchase, 8 or something more. And I was like, this is turning into this is not just a side hustle pretty soon here. And we hit this point where my little 1-car garage in California, which needed to still have a car in it, was just packed with crap. I was like, we have to move or outsource or find some other way to make this work. But that was all the Hurricane mod, the original 3D printed parts.
Okay, so that's the item. The item is the Hurricane, which leads to the 3D printer, which leads to you taking over your garage, and then eventually your wife being like, get this stuff out of my garage.
To my wife's defense, she's been amazing. She put up with an unbelievable amount of strain on everything. When we moved up to Washington, we had the business in our house for the first year and a half. And so I had multiple employees with a newborn baby coming into my house, shipping, and trying to be quiet and close doors carefully. And
look, it's incredible you're still married.
I have an incredible wife. For sure.
There you go. Good for you. Good for you. Well done.
And the second half of that, I guess. Do you want the second half of that?
I want you to think about it. I'm going to give Krijn a chance here to tell me what was the item that told you this was going to be a real thing. It was a camera. As we.
Yes, I hear you again. Sorry, what was the question?
The question is, what was the I want to know in 2020, like what the biggest item for you is, like what's the must-have, the Yeezy, so to speak. But the question before that is, what was the item, the product, the thing that you either made or started selling that you realized like this is going to be a thing, this is going to be a big part of my life, like this is something I'm going to commit to and really lean into? For Luke, he said it was the Hurricane, which is his Zeus with the squirrel fan ball blower that expands a honestly pretty crummy semi-auto rival blaster into a full auto 100-round machine gun. So I'm curious what it would be for you that you were like, okay, we're going to have to make / order / sell hundreds of these things.
So the item for me, which basically got me into modding too, is I think it is the Make Test Battle Neo Rhino motors.
Okay.
And then the orders got mixed up, and I got the order from Foam Blast, and Foam Blast got my order, which was way smaller. But eventually I managed to sell them all. But then I modded my first Strife, and I was like, this is really fun, and basically got out of hand there. As for the product today, it is really hard, because actually at this moment, especially right now, the thing I sell most is Blast. If you look at the most selling item right now, it's going to be the Modulus Long Strike, which is just the blaster, which was an Amazon exclusive first, but is being
right
now.
So I mean,
yeah,
that's something that you do that's relatively unique, and I think that we have a lot of UK and Eurozone viewers right now, but I know just looking at the chat right now that we have a lot of North American nerfers, and that's something that I want to point out that's kind of unique, kind of interesting about your business, is that Krijn sells complete blasters that are otherwise very difficult to get your hands on, that big box stores in the UK or in the Eurozone don't necessarily retail. And so it's kind of a unique sort of advantage that you have in some ways, that you as a smaller business than say a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company doing like actual shipping containers, you can retail these products that people can't get their hands on otherwise. So it's interesting that your answer for what's the most popular thing right now is the Modulus Long Strike, just because I feel like that's not even, and I say this with the most respect to the Long Strike as a platform, like it's not the most compelling and exciting blaster in the competitive or the modification space. It's just a really cool shell that I wouldn't have thought about it explicitly, because we in North America had so many Long Strikes and so many paint jobs for them that we can pick them up at thrift stores and on eBay and for next to nothing. But I definitely know that when I travel to Europe and when I travel to the UK, I occasionally get people who will be like, please bring me this special Dart Zone blaster. Bring a third suitcase so that you can bring some Percy's in it. Like, and I'll be like, Christ, how many Percy's can I fit in a suitcase standard sized? And it's only 4, so it's pretty amazing that you guys have the distribution, the relationship with those buyers and shippers and wholesalers that you can provide.
But
Pardon?
Sorry. The main thing is just that the markets are very different, because in the US you have Walmart, Target, Amazon,
right?
And Europe you don't have. You have Amazon only in a select few countries, and a lot of items don't get released in a lot of countries. So I try to get those items and sell them. But for the Long Strike, it is also because I still have my Dutch web shop, which basically caters to the 12-year-old kids and their parents. And they all want to have the Nerf sniper, which is available for the last 2-3 years. And so
That's pretty awesome. Again, I remember when the Long Strike came out and we were all so excited about the shell and then a little underwhelmed by the performance, and with all the different kits that are out there for it now. And somebody in chat here has brought up, and I think that this is a really unique thing that I would not have thought about, so I want to touch on it. It's Sir Scorp. I wish I was hanging out with you right now, buddy. And he says, Europe is very, very into LARP. And that's true. You guys have a massive LARP scene that incorporates blasters. I know in particular, Germany has almost like 8 different varieties of zombie apocalypse, steampunk, diesel punk, etc. LARPs going on, and so it's an angle that I wouldn't have thought about, where aesthetic is perhaps far more valuable than performance in that arena, and that's pretty cool. I mean, we've even got Spectre in here saying, "I have plans for the long strike," and I'm like, it's very unique to see that, because to me that's almost like being like, I have plans for a Maverick. Like, it's a very old blaster in our retail space. But Luke, I wanna get back to you real quick. And what's the 2020 blaster? What's the most exciting thing going on in the Out of Darts warehouse right now, other than
by a landslide?
PPE?
Oh, sorry.
I said other than PPE, because I know that you've done thousands.
Yeah. We are north of 1,000 units on the PPE now, the face shields. But by a landslide, it's the Percy's stuff this year. That's been my favorite blaster to mod. I made 5 different designs for it, and they've all been really good sellers. So the Hoppers was the first example of an item on the shop where we literally couldn't catch demand for a much longer time than it has ever happened before.
No, I actually
we backed up. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I recall when they first came out, because I had the same gut reaction that it sounds like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nerfers did, where I was like, wow, that's cool. And I got to get my hands on one of those, particularly so I can make a video about it, because I want a Super Percy's. And you were like, hey, man, love you, dude. A video from you right now would be devastating. And I don't even have one to print to send you right now, because everyone that comes off the printers goes in a box and ships. And I was like, fine, I'll wait. I think I tortured you every 3 days for like 2 weeks. I was like, how about now? You're like, I'm still behind. I'm like, okay, but like now you're like, I'm still trying to catch up to my orders. And I'm like, dude, I want to play with one of these things, and other people are doing it first. And now I'm like, And you were like, okay, fine, I've got some. And I was like, I'll take a bad one. It doesn't even have to be super clean. And you ended up sending me an immaculate one. The video did very well. I hope you're caught up at this point. But
we are.
And the Percy's has hiccups. Like, I think that the one issue with it, it's the best blaster I think Nerf has designed and brought to market in the last 3 years, easy. But that claw release on the side, to me, is such a design flaw. And your super simple feature to turn it into like a button slide, because it doesn't require a lot of force, is amazing. If you do nothing else to the Percy's, I think that improves your user experience dramatically. So I'm glad that the Percy stuff is working out well for you. I'm thrilled that we have a distributor for blasters of all flavors and varieties worldwide. And somebody asks if I'm calling out Her Majesty. We're not calling out the Regent Queen of the UK. Although I have heard she doesn't take her hits. She's got guards for that. All right. So moving on along, I'm obscenely jealous of the warehouse now that I'm at this position that I'm in with my small company over here. And so I want to know, because to me that seems like such a huge, tremendous leap forward that it's honestly, it's a little scary. So I want to kind of hear both of your stories in regards to what was the last straw? What made you like throw down the clipboard and say, all right, we're getting a warehouse?
Well, for me, basically, it's a different story. I don't rent a warehouse. I'm fortunate enough that my parents had a business where we have the warehouse space, where I stored things in the house, and then it got in the warehouse, and then there came a pallet, and then it got 2 pallets, and then 10, and then 20, and then I was like, I need shelving right now, and that actually happened for like a month or 2, and already at a point where not everything fits in the shelves anymore. So yeah, there's that. So I still need to take the leap to get my own space sometime in the future.
I guess just to that point, because I didn't know that about your business. Like, first off, congratulations on what sounds like an amazing set of parents. Good for you. And then second off, like, you said that they had a business and they have this warehouse, and I imagine that with the kind of inventory sizes and volumes that Jay,
we lost track.
I have I have a tiny schnauzer running around my house distracting me from my hosting duties. I'm sorry, Foam Fest Live. You could see it as she pulled it. My question was, are you slowly taking over your parents' space at this point? I don't know what their business is, and you don't have to tell me, but I imagine that the sheer size and volume of all of your products, particularly blasters, which are a large volume to weight ratio in the shipping industry, is probably starting to get a little smothering.
Yeah, no, well, I got like my corner where my shelves are, where I could put all the stuff I had. But recently it's been getting worse, and especially if you get a full pallet with one big item in. Yeah, it's hard to go and pack it and put it all in a shelf. It's easier to just leave it on the pallet. So I'm in that stage now, but I've plenty of space left. It's just a question like, how long are we going to be in this building?
Well,
so at the time when we move,
we'll circle back next year, and you can tell me about how your mom kicked you out of your corner because it was getting to be too much, and that was the final straw. Because I feel like that's the progress in this story. So, assuming that it doesn't involve like something crazy like divorce papers being served, like Luke, what pushed you into the formal, like, this is a real business, I have 7 employees space?
Well, obviously there was the literal, we needed to make enough money to actually afford the overhead, because you think of the warehouse, you're like, okay, it's rent, but it's also, you double down on electric, gas, water, sewer, triple net fees. You get additional
it's like
insurance.
owning 2 houses at that point, right?
It's literally, the warehouse costs me more than my house does.
I believe it.
So it's, yeah, I mean, it adds up to an astronomical sum. But at the end of I'm sitting here in what used to be our packing room. It's a 10 by 10 room, and it was floor to ceiling, totally packed. 2 people could not pack in here. I have a room upstairs that is 18 feet long and 11 feet wide. That was packed floor to ceiling, just with aisles in the middle. Our garage is 500 square feet, and that was packed floor to ceiling with like CETA blasters tucked up above 3D printers and stuff just sandwiched every little nook and cranny. And
you see the blasters to yourself.
they're all gone now. Now we only carry the S because the S is much better. But
agreed.
I digress. But
Michelle's in chat saying that your guest room had an aisle through boxes to get to the bed, and that was it.
And that wasn't even the worst of it, because there was a time when there was no guest bed anymore. The guest bed was against the wall, and boxes were.
Yeah, you eventually did away with it. I'm struggling with something similar right now. I'll sneak a brief self-plug in here. I recently launched nextlevelnerf.com, which is my attempt to throw my hat into the businessy ring. I swore off commissions, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and said never again. And we've gotten to a point in the hobby where with some of these kits and some of these incredible designs and designers that I was like, okay, we should lend our flavor to it once again. And in doing so, it's I was surprised. I was shocked by the response that I got by it. I thought I was like, okay, this is going to be outside of Kickstarter, a way to do 1 or 2 of these a month, and that'll be like a fun little thing. I'll have my own web store. It'll pay the Shopify fees, and round we go. And then I'm sitting here with like more than the amount of orders I certainly deserve, looking at it like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get all this done? And so my workshop studio has to become a formal workshop again. And so mentioning like the boxes stacked ceiling high, I didn't realize just how many, because I don't have a problem. I swear. It's not a problem, Mom. It's not a phase. But I'm going through all of these things. I'm pulling out packages from 2012. I'm pulling out boxes that have like shipping labels dated 2015 on them. I had a box. It was just nothing but 5,000 streamline darts inside. And I'm like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And you don't realize, and I'm sure that this with an inventory system isn't quite as bad for you guys, but I was like, as soon as this box goes out of sight and I don't have to open it every day or look at it every day, I just forgot what was in there. And so I had floor to ceiling boxes in 2 storage rooms, and cleaning it out has just been ridiculous. But
I'm sure Krijn will agree, but even when you're running a business and you have like a dedicated space, it is a constant battle of clutter, samples, broken things, customer returns, like all this stuff that you've got to process and somehow manage. And we have a shelf of shame, which is just like stuff that I haven't looked at in years.
Oh,
I mean, and
Krijn's over here showing us the shame box.
It's rough. I mean, I swear I could have a full-time person just cleaning that stuff up for me.
The clutter is real. Chat's telling me right now that the quote, "I don't have a problem" is the first step of being a hobbyist, and then also they're telling me that I unequivocally do have a problem. I get a fever, and the only prescription is more Nerf blasters. All right, excellent. So I guess I kind of want to talk about has this current climate, economically, shipping wise, etc. What's been the most unique challenge you faced because of it? I know in Luke's case specifically, he's had to almost convert half of his fleet of printers into do-good robots, and I know that shipping's been just an absolute nightmare here in North America. But I'm curious what it's like over for you as well in Europe.
Well, as for shipping, that's not too bad. As of yesterday, I don't ship outside of Europe anymore because the fees are just out of control, just way too high. Biggest problem is shipping from China at the moment. It's just insanely expensive at a point where it doesn't make sense anymore. But also in Europe, a lot of suppliers are working from home and answering emails like a week late or not replying at all because they're laid off for a few weeks or something like that. So supply chain is the biggest problem, and that's also because I sell. I think it's different with Luke, but basically I sell a lot more since all this started. People are at home. The kids are at home from school. I sell blasters, so that's part of it, I guess.
No, the toy industry has actually explained to me. I've had multiple clients be like, because I was worried that this would be a big issue with blasters being manufactured largely in southern China, that we were going to have major slowdowns, and a lot of my consulting contracts were going to be thrown by the wayside. And they're like, it's actually an amazing time for toys right now. If you already have the inventory and you're already ready to ship, ready to go, particularly if you had already loaded into Amazon, which a few clients had done post Toy Fair orders. They were like, this is great because people are at home, families are together, they're having fun, they're playing outside. Like, this has been that's the silver lining, I suppose, to this. This is that families are reconnecting with play again, and that's very very wholesome. If you need something to look forward to, it's that a lot of kids are discovering outdoor play for the first time after a lifetime of video games. So it's interesting. You mentioned hiccups with China. Luke, can you kind of echo that?
Yeah.
Or either one of you getting worker orders right now?
We just got one. So all shipping from China has been really rough, even just, since the beginning of this year. It's been pretty bad, between factories being totally shut down or workers being sent home and not accessing email. I mean, I know I've had, like worker, for example, I've emailed and weeks have gone by at times and I get nothing back. And I know I'm not the only one there for sure. And then we've had other production delays. Like we were out of stock on motors for quite some time because of factory being shut down, or the factory that supplies parts for the motors being shut down. So there's all of that. And then the US shipping and international shipping just of our actual packages has been pretty rough. USPS normally books a lot of parcel freight on airlines, on commercial airlines. And a lot of those airlines aren't flying. So their shipping times are going way up rather. They're taking longer, and they're doing more ground transit, which USPS is just terrible at. And my hat's off to all the employees of the Postal Service. I mean, they do a pretty remarkable job, all things considered, as much flack as we like to give them. But things are definitely slow. And then we're getting an insane number of international packages bounced back, like 30%. And when those cost you $20 to ship, you start losing, 10 orders start coming back a week, and you're like, great. there's a couple $100 of shipping costs that I'm going to eat and whatnot. But the bigger thing for us, more than that, is just we had a stay-at-home order in Washington here, so we're running a single-person crew over at the shop, and it's just super inefficient. I'm not there. It's really hard to manage. I feel like on a weekly basis, I'm pretty much just fighting fires and kind of keeping the business afloat, trying to stay on ordering while not being able to look at the inventory. And so there's some challenges. We're gonna weather through it. I'm confident we'll be fine. Orders have definitely are still coming in, so people are modding and are home having fun, which is great to see. I love it. Like, I get these customers that send me like the picture of their 8-year-old son soldering or something, or them decked out in their gear, and I love getting those little midweek pickups. But
excellent.
It's all definitely a challenge.
I know in YouTube land, that's one of the most exciting things. One of the things that's kept me in it for as long as I've been in it is all the kids that are like, I learned to tinker from you, and it's just a testament to how I've been doing this for way too long. But kids who used to come to events in particular and want to go to my alma mater, I have written more recommendations for the Georgia Tech engineering program that are like heartfelt, multi-page, handwritten recommendations of like, this kid used to come to my events. He didn't know how to tie his shoes. Now he's doing multi-stage like electronic circuitry with LED works and kill switches. Like, this kid is well ahead of the curve for your average sophomore, and you must admit him to my program, blah, 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 blah. So it's very satisfying. I love that you also get the warm fuzzies of being like, I provided the equipment for this kid to expand their tinkering mind, or just to like have an amazing party day, etc., with their friends. But Krijn, you wanted to tell me kind of your thoughts on the supply chain hiccups and how you're weathering it or moving forward with it.
I'm really interested at this moment how it's going to be in a few weeks, months with the new releases, because currently for blasters what I'm seeing is a lot of overstock lots and stuff still being available.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, stokers from last year are selling now because nobody has them anymore, but the new ones are not here yet. So in like a week or two, nobody's going to have super stokers, for example. But same rifle blasters, the new ones, like
no, for sure,
they're not here yet. And India is still shut down, and I know Nerf is doing a lot more with India. But even China is
trying to
right now.
Yeah. Perhaps something that we shouldn't talk about explicitly, but is oh so fun to tantalize our audience with. I know for a fact that not just Hasbro, but multiple manufacturers, things that they were debuting at Toy Fair that they had plans to like put into production and be out by summer, have been formally completely derailed. We're going to see a lot of these Toy Fair summer releases probably wind up being Christmas releases. And things that were Christmas releases may either not happen at all, depending upon the numbers, or will be pushed into 2021. So while the industry looks strong right now, as we kind of delete the backlog, because that's how, and just, if you're watching and you're not interested about the industry side of blaster manufacturing, then you have my most esteemed apologies. But if you are, a lot of the things that you see on shelves, a lot of the things that you're excited about that get leaked, the actual production process for them began frequently 12, in Hasbro's case, 18 months ago. So they are okay in so far as the steps don't get backlogged beyond that. But unfortunately, as soon as we run out of like, okay, we had this manufacturing timeline for our soapbox, and now we don't have the soapbox, so we can't approve the mold, so we can't do the thing. We're going to realize that a lot of these lines that were planned, Hyper has been formally delayed, like et cetera and so forth. So I have one final question for you guys, because I think that we are running out of time, and I think that it's something that not only myself but everyone watching is jealous of. You're both you're men that have it all and no ability to do with it. So during this quarantine, hopefully you've each gotten a few down days. And when I say that you have it all, I mean you literally have workshops that are capable of producing just about anything in our hobby that you could dream or imagine or want. You've got all the parts, all the equipment, all the tools. and in some cases even the help and the assistance that you could need. You're very well connected fellows. So have you built anything amazing that?
Yeah, I'm the main thing I've been working on right now is actually doing a hummingbird. So I'm finishing that up, and that's got a new prototype board in it that I have an engineer working on that we designed together. And so I've been working on that and wrapping up the Proton Pack, which is a good excuse to finally finish the final polish as needed. With a business, there's so many different tasks going on at any given time. It's really easy for projects to just get shunted to the side or pushed out. And this has been an opportunity to sit down and polish.
The reason that I ask is that you guys, because you have access to all of these things, tend to tinker on things that we'll get to see later on. You're very much your own toy companies at this point, not just distributors. And so I heard a couple of sneak peeks in there, Luke. It sounds like the Proton Pack is getting ready to go. Final polish.
Very, very, very soon. I mean, it's really going to be as soon as we're back in the warehouse and I have access to my team, we will get it out.
Oh boy.
So,
very exciting. So is there, I guess, and then the only other thing that I wanted to touch on in your statement, and we do have to go quick, which is why I started talking in YouTube speed, but you mentioned something about a board in your Hummingbird, which is pretty spicy.
Yeah, so we have 4 or 5 PCB boards coming out this year, ranging from...
We're glaze over that and let the people's imaginations run wild, because that's very exciting. What could you possibly be doing with a computer?
Basically, we'll have a board that can go in just about every blaster that exists, with features like select fire, ammo counting, brushless control, a little bit of everything. And it's a couple different products that will build out that whole market. But I think adding logic to blasters is like the next logical step, and you can do it to just about any blaster. And the Hummingbird was like a perfect test platform for the solenoid driver. That's
of course.
In one of the boards.
So we're about to hop into the next segment, which means I want to give Krijn a second to tell me, what are you working on? What are you excited about? What's coming next?
About blaster modding, simple question. I just haven't had the time because orders have gone through the roof since this all started. I have a part-time job in sourcing products made in China, custom-made products, stuff like that. So I have got a lot of work like that.
Right.
I'm working on one project which I'm really excited about. I know he's watching. From this guy, you may know him, Nerota. I don't get
Neurohita. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sourcing some. I'm now a first strike dealer. I got some Empire relays and stuff like that. So
that's very exciting. So I know that HPA is very popular over in your region, and it's good that you're sourcing parts that are both consistent and safe, because I know that we all, if you're in chat and you've seen him watching or typing, some very cool designs coming from Neurohita, and I think it'll be good for him to have things that are consistent that he can design around instead of just stuff that he can get his hands on. So with that said, I want to thank you both for your time. Thanks for sharing a little window into your very busy worlds. I hope that we keep having record sales. I know that Foam Blast said that we're doing that well and that we come back stronger than ever. And I'm quite certain we will, and we'll get this chance to meet up at events down the line. But thank you guys so much for joining me, and we're going to move on to our next segment very soon with UK Nerf War and nerfkrig.dk. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
These guys can be found at blastertime.eu. I'm trying. It's on my shirt somewhere. And then, of course, what is it?
It is .eu for Europe. But
.eu.
I have .com. I have all of them.
All of them. Blastertime. Whatever you'd like, and then of course outofdarts.com. We'll be back in just a minute, guys.
And ladies and gentlemen, here we go with our next segment for Foam Fest Live 2020. We are talking with our host Drac in his studio. Joining us are uknerfwar.com and nerfkrig.dk, talking about their respective shops in the UK and Denmark. So I will take you over to Drac in his studio, and he will take it from here.
So flattering that we keep calling this a studio, lads. This is a library / workshop that pulls triple duty over here in Castle Dracula. But we're privileged to be joined by Nicholas and Kev of UK Nerf War and nerfkrig. I'm trying. Yes, excellent.
That's at least how it is in Danish.
And I had to translate the website, so I'm already out of my element, on my back foot. Well done. So you guys sell a variety of different kits. In particular, you both are either working on or sell custom blasters, which I'm a big fan of. We used to call this contract work, and now it's a rarity amongst us. Frequently, people buy the parts to make things for themselves and only sell them when they're moving on into the next project or what have you. And you guys sell blasters or are working on blasters specifically for people and their events in specific ways, which is more art than anything, I feel, and very, very special. But I want to kind of ask you guys what got you into starting a web store? What tilted you over the edge from going to, I assume, local events and just providing things here and there, and then deciding like, okay, this needs to be official. This is going to be my side hustle. I guess we can start with Nicholas here.
Yes, I started just by selling magazines and darts. I bought in bulk of the Light Take or NF Strike or whatever, just to my local group. And when that started going on, we started having more modders coming in, and then I got some of those parts in that are needed to create actual mods to start building up a community here. And then it's just slowly expanded. Now I'm mostly just working and trying to get some more obscure items into the shop, such as the Fly with the World wheels. I was the first European distributor of those, and one of the first international ones as well, since nobody else got them here.
I think you debuted those at Foam Fest last year, correct? I picked up a pair.
Yes, I did. I was the first one to advertise the new price for them.
That was very exciting.
There. But my assortment is generally just, I see a thing on the web I found funny, I ask if I can get a bulk discount, get the pieces, and once they're gone, they're gone.
So this is a real labor of love for you in this case, where it's you find a product that you really want to work with, you think is exciting in one way or unique in another, and then you buy a bulk deal of them and then kind of share them with your friends in your local community, and that's kind of snowballed into a full web store for you.
Absolutely. I'm not into this to try and make a profit or make a living off it. I just wanted basically to cover my own costs of this hobby with flying to the UK or purchasing darts and blasters and stuff like that.
That's very old school, I guess, in that regard. We used to have major events in North America like Apocalypse and then Nomne and then Geddon, and there would frequently be somebody kind of that flavor who would be like, okay, like, and of course it was far less complicated back in the day. It would be like I'll never forget, we used to use Ys as like almost currency, PVC Ys that we would make hoppers out of, and it was hilarious that we had such a hard time finding these 60-degree Ys that occasionally somebody would show up with a bag of Ys that they had sourced from some sort of hardware place, and they'd be like, all right, they're $2. And I remember asking somebody at one point, I'm like, how much did you pay for the bag of 20 Ys? They were like, oh, it was like $34 with shipping. I'm like, so you only make $6? And they were like, well, I didn't really do it because I wanted to make money. I brought the bag because we have such a hard time finding these, and this means that there will be 20 more hopper blasters out there, and that'll be more fun. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for your origin story, because it sounds like it was legitimately just, I want my community to have access to these things so that they can make better stuff, so that we can have better games, and so forth, and snowball and so on. And then I guess that brings us
how it went, yeah.
How it went down. And that brings us over to Kev, who has a very unique product that he makes himself, but also, like, I'm curious what got you into it, because I assume it didn't start with the Bulldog wheels. And we have to say Bulldog wheels because the chat has been nothing but Bulldog wheels since you turned on.
Yeah, I've been modifying and painting blasters for 10 years, more than that probably. But it was only when Blaster Parts released their first precision engineered flywheel, I sort of looked at that and I thought, well, I could do something better, and I came up with the Bulldog after a couple of years of testing and stuff, and people liked them and people wanted them, so I sort of had them made in mass, and then I had to set up a web store just to sell them, and then it snowballed from there. I just had one product for about 6 months, I think, on my website, and then I started adding other things when people kept emailing me asking for motors and things, and it sort of went from there.
So in a lot of ways, the Bulldog wheel is what forced you into the web store space, is what got you to sell all of these products, and is what kind of moved you into there.
Essentially, I sort of reluctantly started a web store because I originally made Bulldogs just for me, to fulfill my need, and then because loads of people liked them, I ended up selling my car and then having a load, using the money to have a load engineered. And then
wait, let's back up there. I feel like we just glazed over. So this is nothing like Wise at all. You were like, okay, the Bulldog wheels are doing well, and I like them, and other people want them, and then you just kind of snuck it in there. You sold your car to pay for a production run.
Yeah.
What kind of car was it? You got to tell me.
It was a 2002 Ford Focus.
Okay, that's not a bad car. That's a reliable beater, man.
I loved that car.
I loved it. I'm assuming it's a proper manual, like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. So I guess the most important question there is: you sold the car, you bought the wheels, you sold the wheels.
Yeah.
Do you have a new automobile?
Well, no, because my wife rather cleverly told me that I needed to make a profit off of the Bulldog wheels. So my first batch paid for the second batch, and so on and so forth. So Kev,
eventually you can't walk everywhere. You've got to get another car.
Yeah, I'm gonna run out of things to sell if I have a bad business model.
Excellent. Well, I hope that we wind up with a new car for Kev at some point, and I hope that you get a vanity plate that says B-Dog on it or something hilarious. Do they do vanity plates in the United Kingdom? I don't know.
They do, yeah.
All right, excellent. In the States, they're never quite that tasteful. It's always like dad car or something. Somebody says call it the battle bus.
I've actually got a battle bus now. I've got.
Excellent. So we worked our way into it. Phenomenal. Well, I'm thrilled to hear that your wager paid off. The viewers, and then of course in our chat, are saying that if there's you can just yell at me. I assume, because you're coming in just a little bit quiet now, but that's excellent. So I guess I want to ask you guys a very similar question to my previous guests. What's your favorite product that you have either worked on or sold or distributed? What has had the most impact on your local community? I'm sure that in Kev's case, it's going to be the Bulldog flywheels, but I want you to tell me about the thing that we were speaking about earlier in this case. And while you kind of figure out how to phrase that, we're going to go to Nicholas. Nicholas, what's the big winner?
Mine has definitely been the foam glass motors and the Bulldog wheels I've gotten through Kev, which really has helped elevate our local community. It started from just being basically just me modding stuff to us starting getting some actual other players modding stuff, and then me being able to help source the parts for them has been really helpful in building this community.
Wow. And so I guess kind of similarly, Kev, you said that you have something for the new modder, I guess, someone who may not be as familiar with electronics.
I sell an awful lot of LARP events, so I have a mobile stall that I take to LARP events. And one in particular has started sort of really upping their game in terms of modding at the event. And I got a lot of people coming to me that had essentially no experience in modding or didn't know where to get the parts. So I decided to put together a Strife starter kit So that comes with all the motors and the wire and the battery and the charger and the flywheels and everything that they need to make that. They just buy a Strife off the shelf, and then they can build it with my kit.
Do you mind me asking what that costs?
That's a very, very good question. I should probably know the answer to that, shouldn't I?
Because
£55, I believe.
And that's motors, wires, switch, cage, wheels, the whole kit and
no
caboodle?
cage. It uses a stock cage.
Okay, got you. And the Bulldogs work well in the stock cage then, yes?
They do, yeah. I mean, it'll max out about 120 FPS, which is...
I mean, that's incredible. That's perfect for LARP and HVZ and everything. I'm a big fan of that sweet spot between like 110 and 130. Yeah. I have an event in particular that I try and encourage everyone to float in there. I mean, that's wonderful that you... It's brilliant. I haven't... It's unusual, I guess, because Worker is constantly trying to throw kits at us that sometimes aren't complete or they don't do explicitly what we want. And it sounds like you solved a need instead of tried to create a need. The need was people didn't know explicitly what they needed to get into flywheel modding, and you just are kind of like, here is a box. This box will kind of guide you through that journey so that in the future, if you want to stick with it, you know what you're doing, and if that's your one and done, then you have a nice blaster at the end of it. That's very clever. I think that's a really, really wonderful thing. And then I just kind of want to touch back on Nicholas, who mentioned that the combination of motors and, in this case, your flywheels have elevated the gameplay in his part of the world, his events. And I think that's really cool because it's something that I wanted to talk about last time in the last segment with Luke and Krijn, but I didn't really get the chance. And I think it's really, really amazing how much the motors have impacted our hobby, like having motors that are proper versus having to source different motors on eBay or what have you. And I'm curious, since you both retail motors from both the Make Test Battle guys and the Foam Blast ladies, if you could speak about that, like, did you notice a certain surge? Did it change your local events? Did it change how your web sales went? Like, do these items frequently get bundled? Do people buy motors alone, etc.? And I just want to give you each time to talk about that, because I think that they definitely deserve a little bit of a shout out. The motors have been huge in my local community. We can start off with you, Kev.
I remember the days where we scoured the internet for weeks and weeks trying to find the right type of motor, and then somebody would find a seller on eBay that was selling the 180s or whatever, and people would just like buy them out overnight. And it's nice now to have not just motors that are specifically designed for the hobby, but a variety of motors that are specifically designed for the hobby. So you can, by choosing your motor, you can really, really dial in your loadout, and you can get the blasters perform exactly the way you want it to.
Nicholas, how do you feel about these motors?
I'm definitely a fan of them. Like, I started back in 2016 just with the release of the Rhino and the Hellcats, and just with the advancement that you don't actually need to shell cut more is amazing. I use either the Krakens or the revamps for most of my builds now because of they have the high torque, they have the fast spin up because of the torque, and they're pretty quiet because of the ball bearing, which is absolutely amazing. Which have definitely made those two my favorite motors now.
Excellent. We've come a long way from RM2s. The chat wants us to mention. Does everybody remember RM2s? I remember.
I never even touched one.
I found a bag of RM2s in my toolbox the other day. Actually,
you found one. Excellent.
Yeah, I found 4 of them, and I was like, I'm going to make a blaster like it's 2010.
I'll pretend. Yeah, I remember. It was Boba Lolo who taught me how to do it. The RM2s were so bad that we had an overwhelming mentality where we would throw them in a blaster, run that blaster until it burned out the carbon brushes on it, and then we had such a hard time finding decent motors that Bobo had a trick where he would replace the carbon brushes on the RM2s to make carbon RM2s, and it'd be so much work for nothing special in the end. So I think that the motors have been huge in the retail space, and it's very good to hear that you guys feel the same way, that they've grown your local hobbies and your web stores in particular. I do want to do a brief raffle reminder here, guys. My running tally here tells me that we're at 2,565 pounds. We gotta get a couple more donations in there. We're trying to get this beard shaved off live on camera. I know that we're all very excited to see that, particularly how long it's going to take to get it back into its full glory. But at 3,000 pounds, we will have Archer regale us with her musical talents, which I'm personally excited for. I know that Archer is very talented musically, and as someone with zero musical talent, I think that could be a very cool treat for everyone involved. So bringing it back to our wonderful web store guests here, if you're just tuning in, we have Kev from UK Nerf War, and we have Nicholas from nerfkrig.de. And I'm curious, what?
DK, Denmark, not Germany.
The European surnames for these websites are killing me, boys. I apologize to everyone for getting them mixed up. I recently said that somebody from, I don't even remember, I think it might have been Denmark, was from Germany, and I got chewed up in my own comment section. So sincerest apology, boys. But I want to ask you guys, are you working on anything particularly exciting or new for your web stores right now? I know that Nicholas, you were teasing something earlier in the design portion, but like, what's your next big item?
Again.
Yes, excellent. Let's take a look at this.
Be on my screen now. Yeah. So we showed earlier in the design phase, but I wanted to go a bit more into detail now with it. And this is Project Swarm, the blast I've been working on for the last, I don't know how long by now. I said it earlier, I can't remember. But it's basically going to be a solenoid-powered Griffin, taking a lot of design cues from there. But plan is to eventually have this little space up here filled with a select fire board as well. I'll be developing, so it'll have some upgrades down the road. I'll just release it in semi-auto form to start with.
So just to kind of talk about it like a product here really quick, it sounds like you're going to be using a variety of different inspiration and pieces from other vendors and other makers in the hobby, which is part of what makes this hobby so great, is how synergistic it can be. I can already see inspiration from like our Talon magazines, which are of course China. You've got switches, which you sell yourself, and wire, and the usual suspects there. The solenoid, I assume, would be Flywheel the World, since...
Yeah, it's currently set up for the cheap Chinese one, but it will eventually be made for the Flywheel the World solenoids.
That's a pretty easy conversion I've found recently while doing some of my own blaster design.
That's what I've heard. And then a set of Daybreak wheels, because those are the best for the high-performance stuff.
I like the Daybreaks. I'm a big fan of what Kuryak is doing. So that's 4 different makers.
Prototype of cage here for 41.5 millimeter or 40 millimeter crush, I think it is.
And so
right now,
just to keep the focus on the store, have you already started thinking about like how this is going to affect your web sales, your production, and then have you priced it out yet? Do you know what you think you want to sell it for?
No idea. Like I'm not usually making blasters for profit. I want to earn a little bit from my time, but other than that, it's mostly just cost I sell at, because I enjoy making blasters and I enjoy the 3D printing and the soldering and stuff like that.
I find that part of the process of building blasters for other people can be very cathartic. I sometimes will sit down and zone out for 3 hours building something, and I often feel like I'm 18 again. It's really cool.
Definitely. There's a lot of people in our local group now running builds I've made, from just basic drives to
there's no better feeling than that and stuff like when your buddy goes into battle with your creation. That's fantastic.
It's great. It's even worse when you get shot with it.
I frequently lament that. I'm like, I created you, why are you hurting me now? So Kevin's popping in and out, but I really want to give him the chance to talk about hopefully Bulldog 2.0, which is a joke that I'm coming up with right now. I don't know if that exists, but Kevin, what are you most excited to bring to market next?
I'm pretty happy with how the web store is at the moment. I'm gonna. My plan was for this year to concentrate on commissions again, because I really enjoy sort of creating the blasters that people come to me with. But I don't know how that's going to go at the moment, because a lot of events and things are all cancelled at the moment. But I'm going to sort of try and gradually expand the products on the web store. But I'm not massively ambitious about that, to be honest.
I'm really glad that you brought up commissioned and custom blasters, just because I think that they're a true art form in our hobby, and there's something that really jumps out at you when you check out your website, is that you seem to have a real talent, a real gift for paint jobs, particularly these weathered LARPish blasters. And you mentioned that that's what you're most excited for. I want to know kind of how does your process work for that? Because I've struggled with that personally, doing it half a dozen different ways over the years. How do you usually, what's your ideal commission look like?
I generally like projects from LARPers, because they come to me with ideas that nobody's ever thought of. They want something like massive and ridiculous, or something from an obscure anime movie or something. So I quite like the challenge of something that I've probably never heard of before. It's either that, or it's something they want something ridiculous, like the LARP Bren gun that I did, which took me so many hours, so many hours of sanding and sculpting on that. But in the end, it was an absolute joy to have done it, and the main thing is that the customer was really happy with it. It was great.
There's actually a lot of people in the chat lauding you for this Bren gun. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And so, I mean, I guess kind of in that spirit, not to put you on the spot, but you mentioned so many hours of work went into this. How do you often price your work? Is that a private negotiation that happens between you, the artist, and the customers, or do you find that part to be challenging at times? Because it's impossible to charge a fair wage when you're doing something that you love like this, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, at the start, it's very easy to undervalue your work, and somebody will come to you with a crazy idea, and you say, "Yeah, I'll do that for beer money," and in the end, it ends up becoming a real labour of love, because you just can't find the hours to finish it. So I generally have quite a long discussion with clients if they want to commission something off of me, and I'll give them a figure, and if they don't like it, then I'll try and find a way to make the blaster they want within their budget.
I think that's very noble, the pursuit in that way. I know that I've definitely done some contracts at a loss over the years because I underestimated how much work they would be.
Yeah,
and I'm sure
sometimes
I'm sure we've all wound up.
Something you really want to build, and you're really excited by it, then you will do it just for love. But most of the time, it's something that is somebody else's passion, so it's very difficult to do that for love, you know.
No, it can be challenging. Like I've done Firefly builds at a loss from the television series for Brown Coats, yeah. But I've had people from other sci-fi realms, particularly LARPers, ask me to replicate things. So in particular, I'm going to shout out Monkeytron real quick. I know that he's working on an Aliens pulse rifle right now, and I did one of those forever ago. It wasn't very good, and I wasn't as passionate about it. And I'm looking forward to his, because I think it's going to be much better. Spectre says the hardest thing to do sometimes is you have to say, I can't charge you for the stress that this will put on me, the time that it will cost me. So we definitely have time for a few more questions here. I guess I want to ask you both, and we'll start with Nicholas here. What platform do you use for your web store? I know that I saw that it was part Etsy, but there was also part website. And like, what were the challenges, the decisions that led into that? Because I'm sure that we have viewers who have thought about, or perhaps dipped their toe into the water of like, oh, I could sell work. I could sell my own stuff, or I could make something. And the truth is, if you're watching this right now, you're unequivocally interested enough that you could get away with it. Stop it. You both run your web stores, I think, a little bit differently, and so I'd like to hear more about that.
mine is run purely off Etsy. The website link just redirects to Etsy. And
Okay.
I chose Etsy because it was the cheapest for me. Shopify and some of the other plugins cost me more than I expected to make in a month, so that would just be even more of a loss for me. So that's basically why I ended up on Etsy.
So you felt like Etsy had a really good sort of fee structure for you?
Yeah.
And it's easy
They
to
charge
use.
per sales instead of a fixed monthly fee, which was way too high for anything I've ever made in a month. This shop.
I understand. I respect that. I recently dipped my toe into Shopify, and it was honestly a little surprising how much they want to charge per month and in their fees per transaction. I will say that one thing that I really like about Etsy, for those of you that might be watching and considering getting into this space, is that it's a lot like YouTube. People will be like, "Oh my gosh, you're a YouTuber. That must have been really challenging." And I'm like, that sign up button is on the homepage and it's free. So it is, I believe, still free to start your Etsy store, and then you kind of pay as you go. So I encourage you to
20 cents per listing and then a bit of a fee for the sale.
Yeah, it's a very affordable way to break into it. Then Kev, how did you come upon your website? It's remarkably well done. I'm curious how you built it, because everything from like when I sign in, it pops up a COVID thing, and then your gallery and all of your links. It's very clean. It looks good.
So my very first website was really, really clunky, and I actually had it designed for me by a guy in a pub, but that's another story. That was when I first started selling bulldogs, and because I added other products to that, I knew nothing about websites, so I didn't have the skills to add the other products to the website. So I binned that website off, and I use a website package called Wix.
Okay, so you went with the Wix package to build your website,
and that appealed to me because it's all sort of drag and drop, so even an idiot like me can design a website with it.
I don't think anybody would call you an idiot. In fact, I'm very jealous that your website looks so much better than mine. So well done. We have the opportunity to take a look at your Bryn right now. If you'd like to talk over that for just a moment, I think that everybody would be very interested in this build, and it looks just tremendous.
Yeah, I built a Bren gun 5 or 6 years ago, but the client wanted it to look like it was a Nerf product, so that ended up being just elite colours. And a LARP customer of mine saw that, and he said, "Could you make one that looks as authentic as possible?" So I thought about it, and we eventually agreed on a price. And I said that I will make it as true to the original as absolutely possible. And in the end, I actually went to a friend's house who has a deactivated Bren, and I took a load of measurements off of that. So the one I've made is almost exactly to scale. I mean, some of all the parts are off ever so slightly, but because of the nature of the Nerf blaster that it was built around, but on the whole, it is almost spot on to scale.
No, this looks really, really good. I've never had the pleasure of shooting a Bryn myself, but I am familiar with them, and it looks like about as Bryn as you could make a Strife. And I think that we'd all be very interested to hear what components went into this, and I'll humble myself by guessing here real quick. I think this is a stock battery tray, a worker stock that you've adapted, and then a Raider magwell, maybe a couple of worker front end pieces. But I'm very curious about the grip, the handle, the trigger, the barrel material, etc., and whether or not you found that there was a performance issue with so much barrel attached to a flywheel build.
There is certainly a performance issue with the barrel, but that just, you can overcome that by putting more power into it. But the stock was from a German guy called Terran 3D Print. It's actually a solid wood stock that he's developed an adapter for that it adapts it onto Nerf. And then it's a Rampage magwell, basically glued onto the top of the Strife, and then filled with automotive bodywork filler. The furniture on the front that covers up the teeth of the strife is all 3D printed, and then all of the barrel is made out of PVC pipe, which has been welded together and reinforced with bolts in some places. And the carry handle off the top of it is off of a Vulcan.
Oh wow, it's a Vulcan carry handle. I would not have guessed that. You've clearly changed it a little bit, yes?
Yeah, basically just cut one of the arms off of it and then filled it in and then given it a wood grain effect.
Yeah, it looks very, very good. So I'm not going to ask how much this cost explicitly, because I understand that process can be private between client and commissioner. But I am curious, with something this involved, this well done, how many emails went back and forth? Just ballpark. Like,
he was actually one of my favourite type of clients. He said that, he asked for the project, I gave him a price, and then he just said go for it and just left me to it.
Oh, aren't those just a joy?
They are the best, yeah. And he sent me a couple of things saying, have you got any updates? And I said, yeah, I've got some updates. He didn't want any pictures throughout the build. He said, no, just surprise me at the end. And it arrived on his doorstep completely out of the blue, and he was blown away.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? We're getting dangerously close, guys. I just want to give you a brief update here on our fundraiser. We're at £2,639, which is much closer to the beard delete mod that we're all looking forward to. And then just a brief shout out. A lot of people in the chat, including Finland, Sir Scorp, Just a Jolt, everybody saying that Terran 3D is awesome. So shout out to you, man. It sounds like your work is well received. Well done. Somebody also is asking, whose beard? I guess you'll have to wait and find out. I feel like we're gonna get there. I can't remember the exact. I think it's Captain Redbeard. So we have a brief bit of time here to pass it off to you guys, to give you the floor. I'm hearing something from Boff. Could be anything as we logistically meander our way through our host duties here, guys. What's Drac doing? His best. So I throw to Nicholas. So Nicholas, have you done any custom builds like that? Can you explain this Talon Club?
A couple of calibers for some of the people around here who don't have 3D printers themselves. I think I've done 3 or 4 calibers so far, and a couple of griffins and stuff like that. I have
one behind
most of a griffin assembled in a box. I need to get fixed sometime this week when I actually get motors and stuff in. For one of those in the chat here. Yeah, Jacob.
He's in here.
Which has been a super fun build with the kind of khaki, more tactical, and all the good sparkle of the Vertigo Grey, which is just awesome filament as always.
I'm also a huge fan of the Vertigo anything. I think I'm well documented on their customer sheets at this point. So I guess something that would be fun to talk about is you've mentioned that you commission build 2 different kinds of blasters. You do the Griffin and the Caliburn, which is they're both fully kind of open source, non-commercial blasters, which I just want to kind of touch on. Has that helped you in making them custom, building them for other people, that you don't have to, the step files are available, they're easy to work with, etc., as opposed to some of these closed source designs?
I haven't done anything to Griffins, but all of the Caliburns have had stuff like custom magwell on them.
Right.
Because that just makes them way better.
Well, they become special, not just a Caliburn, quote unquote.
Very, I built a couple of other bit. I built a pair of Woosies for a friend that should have been out running yesterday at FFS, but we all know how that went. It is
unfortunate that we're not doing this in person, but this has been pretty wonderful, guys. We have 4 minutes left, I guess. I've asked you what you're most proud of, what you like working on the most, etc. We've talked about some of your respective projects. I like that you both do client work, and you are, Nicholas, an exclusive distributor for the Flywheel the World stuff, or at least you were for a while. I'm sure other people will sprout up, and then of course
Karen
Kevin
has them now as well, but my price is better because I get a better deal from Adrian.
I love it. I love it. The price is better, boys. It's the link in the description. So I guess I want to give you a brief minute here to sign off, tell people where they can find you on social media. Nicholas, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm on nerfkrig.dk on Instagram, and on Facebook I'm posting, and then I have a website, but that's in Danish, so most of you probably wouldn't understand it. And then the shop, which actually has a coupon code live right now. I've been posting about FoamFest Live for all purchases over, will get you 20% off for all purchases over around 25 quid because it's set up in Danish crowns.
Do you do any other social media? Are there any videos, Instagram, etc.?
I have a pretty abandoned YouTube, which I don't post much on, but I need to get that alive again to do some promotional videos for the Nerf Denmark community, so we can try and get up a big national game like the Battle of Brit Nerf.
Ooh, well, count me in. Very exciting.
It'll be great to see you here.
Is there a rivalry? I know that in a Battle of Britain, there's country on country combat.
There's always Zealand, which is the best part of Denmark, versus the big ugly Jutland over on the west.
I got you. You heard it here first, guys. There's a best part of Denmark, and Nick is in it. All right, Kev, same to you. Where do the people find you? Where can we see more of these amazing pictures?
Yeah, you find my stuff on uknerfworld.com, which is my web store, and there's a small gallery there. I'm also on the Facebook and the Instagram, where you'll see all my mods and stuff. So yeah, check me out. I have a YouTube as well. The YouTube.
Excellent. What's the YouTube?
UK Nerf World, I think.
UK Nerf War, phenomenal. All right, well, we're looking forward to seeing both of you in brighter times and better circumstances for travel at respectively large events. And thank you guys so much for giving us your time talking about your web stores. It was very different hearing from your perspective. You're much closer to the sort of stuff that I do than the monoliths before us. And in particular, I want to laud you because it seems like in both cases, this is a real labor of love. And I think that that's very, very special, very cool that it started as just how do I get these parts to my local community to elevate our play? Oh God, I have too many of these parts. What do we do? How do we get rid of this inventory? And then I don't know if it was internationally public knowledge, but the selling the cars story is fantastic.
It was a bit of a gamble.
I respect it, and it sounds like it paid off well for you. How very exciting. Good job. Well done all. So I'm going to pass it back to Boff for another ad segment here. Just a brief reminder that we all want to see this beard go. And we're a little over 100 pounds away from that goal. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Thanks so much for joining me, Nicholas, Kevin. Appreciate it, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
For community news, mods, members, and more. Thank you FoamFest Live for hosting Women of Nerf.
These are not just any blasters. They're Monkeytron Collective blasters. Custom painted and hydrodecked just for you.
Just a quick reminder before we jump into our next segment that our raffle is live. It is currently sitting at just over £2,600. There are various other challenges and unlocks available for when we reach 2,750 and 3,000 that our host Drac will go into in a moment. But for the moment, I wanted to take a second to look over the Worker Dominator that was kindly donated to us and is available as a raffle prize. It's fully tricked out. It's very blue. It's triple stage and designed to push the platform really as hard as it can. So I will take us through, and we now have Drac waiting for us in the studio with Al from Monkeytron Collective, and they are going to talk about MTC and Next Level Nerf. So over to Drac.
Almost. This transition is always so much fun, guys. Not knowing. All right. Welcome back, guys. So I'm joined with my UK dad, my UK fam, Al and Mel of Monkeytron Collective. We're gonna talk about Monkeytron Collective and what an incredibly unique and a special piece of the hobby it is. Before we get right into that, one more shout out that we're just a little over 100 pounds away from our next goal, and then of course if we can get donations up to 3,000 pounds, we'll be serenaded by the wonderful and talented Archer from Women of Nerf. And as far as a couple of things that have come up in the chat that are just worth touching on real quick, this is going tremendously well. We've had plans for something to slake your FoamCon lusts for a little while now, but I wanted to see how this went and steal all of the best pieces and parts of it. Learn from them so that we could try and do our very best for that. But we're not here to talk about End War or FoamCon. We are here specifically to talk with Al from Monkeytron Collective, so we'll pass it over to him.
Hello, how you doing? Yeah, kind of getting a bit tired now. Today's been a bit incredibly stressful and amazing fun and mind-blowing with the amount of money that's been raised. Thank you so much to everyone that's dug deep and got that money in the pot. We really weren't expecting this total. It's been amazing.
So we want to talk about different vendors, different sellers, different facets of the hobby. My dog wants to be in the live stream for no reason, apparently. Maybe she's just feeling left out. She's German after all. She wanted to come to Foam Fest, hang out with Scorp and his whole crew. So you guys have a very unique take on the hobby from a business perspective. You run one of the coolest booths I've ever seen, and you run it not exclusively at nerfing events. You take it, it's a mobile setup, to different conventions, and I'm sure that with a lot of those events slowing down and shuttering due to the current pandemic, that's been difficult. But I want to talk about brighter times and better realities where the Monkeytron shooting range travels around, and then you guys also do more custom work than virtually anybody I know. You're like old school commissioned blasters with everything from hydro dipping to top shelf internals. You do a little bit of everything, and then the thing that I'm most jealous of is you do it as a family/team unit. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, as you said, you kind of started off with the big guys, with the big shops, the big warehouses, and then down to the slightly smaller guys with the web stores and everything. And we do our business kind of face-to-face at conventions mainly. As you said, we not just Nerf events, we do a lot of Comic Cons, and we've also done music festivals, kind of local events and kind of fairs and fetes and towns and stuff, and we've travelled over the UK doing that. It started off, I'd always been a toy collector, and I'd kind of moved house a few house moves ago, and I was just pulling toys out my loft, just boxes and boxes of toys, and I thought, half of these toys are never going to see the light of day again. I want to sell them, and a lot of stuff was quite collectible, so I didn't want to put it on eBay or do a car boot sale. So I booked into a kind of local Comic Con here in Glasgow, which is quite a big event, and it's quite a big event, and kind of took all these toys I wanted to get rid of. I'd already been getting into Nerf at this point, and it's one of the reasons I started painting with that. I'd kind of done a few cosplay paint jobs and stuff. I had a pile of N-Strike blasters. I had a pile of N-Strike blasters we wanted to get rid of, and I thought,
so
it'd probably sell better if they were painted and looked cool. So
what's your favorite cosplay blaster? I gotta stop you real quick here to talk about it. I know what it is.
Well, I'm a massive Judge Dredd fan, as you know, and I've actually got one here I've been working on. I've not shown any pictures of this yet, apart from to some close friends.
Pull it onto camera, get a sneak peek for everyone. Fantastic. Even Jinx is excited. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do about this?
This is the one, one of the Judge Dredd blasters I'm missing from my collection. I have a collection of them all, and this is the original Mark 1 comic version. This is a kit model that was made by an artist friend of mine.
Right.
It's actually made from MDF. That has been sliced, been laser cut in layers and built up. So it's all built up in different layers, and then it's all being glued together. So much priming, so much sanding, so much.
Yeah, but you've gotten such a great result. It's tremendous detail. The dry brushing looks incredible, and it's very
still got a bit of work to do. I've got some decals to go on it and a bit more detailing to do. But yeah, that's my current favourite one. We do a lot of Star Wars things, as I say. Also, we do a lot of cosplay. We do a bit of cosplay as well. So
Gotcha.
I'm involved in the cosplay scene here in Scotland, and so we get a few commissions from cosplayers. So we do a lot of Star Wars stuff, and kind of a lot of sci-fi, fantasy. I'm not a massive fan of the kind of real steel, realistic-looking paint jobs unless it's a sci-fi.
Of course, and so much sci-fi derives from the world of yeah. Oh wow.
So this is one from one of my costumes that I use, the clone rifle.
Excellent.
Got a matching pistol for it somewhere.
So we're birds of a feather in this regard. A lot of my most popular blasters and content were excellent. The old DL44.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of stuff with Destiny back in the day, and then of course I was doing Halo mods before they were cool. Some particularly terrible ABS and epoxy putty different battle rifles and ARs and pistols and what have you. But I think that there's a really interesting thing, and I doubt that anybody's ever given you proper props for it, but you take our hobby in the best way, in the most fun and friendly manner, and you introduce it to a lot of people. You are in many ways, I'm sure, responsible for a lot of people's entry vector into nerfing as we know it, because you're meeting these people and introducing them to what nerfing can be, who were otherwise unexpecting to kind of encounter it. Like you go to a Comic-Con, you see some cool costumes, and then, oh my goodness, what's the shooting range? So can you tell me more about like the entire loadout that comes out of that van?
Yeah, we can do a pretty big setup at times. We often have the stall and the target range. We have the throne of foam as well that we take along. So we have let people sit on the throne of foam and get pictures. And we have the Nerf target range as well, which is a massive 6 meter by 3 meter kind of gazebo in closed space. And we take this to Comic Cons, and we have a rack of blasters there and loads of ammo and loads of different targets set up and LED lights flashing, and kids come in and have an absolute blast with it. And if it's a kind of local, in the kind of where central belt of Scotland, well then if the kids come in and we get talking Nerf, and we'll direct them to some of the local Foam Dark Thunder events and stuff as well. And we've actually, we've directed loads of players into the FTT.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Probably responsible in a lot of ways for the growth of the hobby over in that pocket of the UK. Very, very cool. Just tremendous. And I can't express enough how cool it is that for you, this isn't just Big Al of Monkeytron doing this. Like Mel comes to these events and helps you with setups, and in particular, you've got your son Aiden. You guys are a powerful wingman duo at a lot of these events. So how did he kind of lead into the creation of the Monkeytron brand?
Well, it's kind of, as you say, I'm very lucky to be able to do this with the family as a family thing. Obviously, Mel's equally involved in the hobby, and there's so much other stuff as well behind the scenes to do with the Foam Fest and Women on Earth and everything. She does so much, and then obviously the kids get involved as well. I say Aiden came over to Endroll with us as well.
It was very very cool to get to see you guys doing battle against my zombie hordes together. And huge shout out to Mel, Al's lovely fiance. I don't think that Foam Fest would be possible without her. Certainly last year, tremendous effort.
No, it would not be possible. She's been glued to the laptop.
It's neck and neck. Jamie and Jamie from California and Mel from Scotland in terms of like who's my favorite Nerf mom, I guess. They're both just absolutely incredible, and we touched on Women of Nerf. They've got a really good organization where all of the ladies of our hobby are far more productive than we are most of the time. I peek in every once in a while, but we are here to talk about our small businesses, small clans and operations. So I guess what just from an interesting point of view to talk about with our audience here, you do contract work, you build blasters. Sometimes you build blasters and sell them at Comic-Cons and conventions. So in a lot of ways you run almost like a vendor booth. And then you're very involved with a lot of these smaller events. I guess they're not that small. The Foam Dart Thunder events have become quite large at this point. But you travel to those and deliver work there, I've seen in the past, and sponsor those events and do all of that. So like what makes this into a side hustle for you? At what point did you decide it wasn't going to be, I'm making blasters for myself, into I'm making a dozen of these things to sell to people?
Yeah, I think it was just after we'd done our first Comic-Con event, and it was just being there behind the table all day, getting to see all the people in the hall because they all come around your table. So you get to see all the cosplayers and all the customers, and it was just the whole day was a total blast. And then just my hobby is just painting blasters. It's just what I love to do in my downtime. It's what I want to do is go. You've seen my workshop downstairs. It's very small. I go lock myself away in there, and
it's a comfortable escape from reality for a minute. Yeah.
I mean, and I'll happily have 6, 7, 8 blasters on the go at once. I paint in quite large volumes, and ideas will come into my head, and I'll think, I'll go grab a blaster out of the shed and start work on it, and then I'll be halfway through that, and I'll have another idea, and I'll go grab another one and start sticking things together, and then
how do you manage the organized chaos? Our workshops look very similar up until about 2 days ago, when I was finally like, that was my last straw. I was like, I gotta clean this up a little bit, and it's not going well, I'll tell you.
And then Mel will have an idea, so she'll come down and start working on something, and then it's just, yeah.
Pat does the same thing to me all the time. But yeah, he's got all of my elevator clamps right now. I'm trying to clean the workshop, and while I'm trying to clean the workshop, Pat's on the other end of it with my alligator clamps being like, I think that this is how this circuit's going to go together. And I'm like, would you just let me do that, please, later? And he's like, no, I'm going to do it now. So we're making a mess while we clean. And then we've got a question from chat. Casual wants to know, Al, what do I got to do to get my my hands on that Iron Brew Knockout? It looks like he is motivated and ready to buy, my man. It's quite good.
I built this for myself, but if Casual wants one, I'm sure I could make him another one.
There you go. It sounds like you guys can connect online. There are many ways that you guys can touch base, and he's willing to duplicate it for you. But I actually got my first Iron Brew ever from you guys, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'm a well-known fan of the Coca-Cola, but I like it a whole bunch.
I've drank far too much Iron Brew today.
I believe it. You've been going since the very beginning. I am not ashamed to admit that I was up late last night working on the workshop, and then I woke up pretty much just in time to start my segment here with you guys. So I'll embarrass myself and say that I slept in my Blaster Time t-shirt so that I would be ready to go, ready to represent.
So yeah, but no, it's a pleasure to be a part of the whole community here in the UK as well. Just everything we do, from the Comic-Cons to being involved with Foam Dart Thunder, and then Brit Nerf as well, and being part of Foam Fest, putting on Foam Fest last year was just such an absolute blast, and the way it's developed and grown over this last year. This year's event was going to be so much bigger and better, but alas, it never worked out. But here we are, and today's just been amazing. It's been great fun.
I feel that pain. There's an N4-sized hole in my my calendar, and my heart. In the chat, they're telling me to sleep in it all I want. It's a good t-shirt. Excellent. Thank you, Blaster Time. So we have a little bit of time to talk about our respective businesses. This is my shill-tastic moment to mention that I have finally...
I'll swap hats.
Excellent.
So Drac, why don't you tell us about Next Level Nerf?
All right. A brief history into, I guess, commissions with Drac is that the first 100 or so were traded for Chick-fil-A #1 combos. My audience knows this really well. This is like back in my dorm days. I would do basic HVZ modifications. We're talking AR deletes and spring swaps and penny mods and Maverick tweaks and stuff. And I would trade it for meal plan redemptions. My classmates would get me a #1 combo, which, all politics aside, is a pretty delicious chicken sandwich with pickles and fries. And that would be how I would eat over the course of the weekends, as I would take contract work for those. And eventually it got out of hand, and we started doing mail-in through the YouTube channel commissions, exactly like what Blaster Time's getting at here in the chat, which is $10 in a Maverick. How do I get a sniper in Drac colors? And the answer is you're going to need more than $10 in a Maverick these days, but I'll happily make you one over on nextlevelnerf.com.
I made it as a nerfer when I first got one of those messages on Instagram.
Exactly. You know you've made it when you get lowballed so hard it hurts. That's when like some 8-year-old took his mom's phone and he's like, I think these are great. Send me one for free, please. But eventually it got to the point where I could charge a real amount of money for my work. It still was criminally underselling my time at that point. But as we advanced in uni, we could offer more contracts, and it got to the point where, because my audience was younger than myself and didn't really understand what went into these builds, I would frequently have 20 emails back and forth before we'd finally agree on a price, agree on a build, agree on a color scheme and a set of modifications. Sometimes I would even go so far as to buy the materials to do that. And then we'd get the killing blow, which is email 21 is like, oh, by the way, I'm 14 and can't afford this. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's like only like $80. Why did you do this to me? I've spent hours emailing you. And so when I graduated from university, I just said no more. I wasn't going to do commissions anymore because it felt like I was spending more time negotiating them than I was actually working on them. And that was the pleasure and the fun of it. And my local group, the Southeast Nerf Club, had grown to the point that I could kind of take in-person contract work. If I really wanted to work on something for somebody else, a friend of mine or a new player there would allow me to make something for them, something similar to what I was rocking. And this is still back in RM2 days. Like, we're not doing top shelf work at this point. We're doing top shelf work for the time, which now seems very, very underwhelming. But between all of the different amazing designers that are out there right now, we are the only person licensed by Gavin to make spamps, I believe. I think that Valor's done a couple, but I think that we're the only one actively selling them. I think we're Timmy Wynn's only licensee for hummingbirds. Again, a couple of people have done one-offs. I know that Luke's working on a special one right now, but and then of course it's very easy to work with Slug. Slug is so friendly. He's from the generation before me in Nerf, and he wanted me to add my personal touch to some of his babies. And it's kind of gotten to the point where, between 3D printing being where it is in production and the different kits and availability, like a Rapid Strike is no longer hours and hours of tweaking switches to make them perfectly fit and function. Now you can just drop it aboard. That I have finally, with the advent of web stores being better, kind of removes a little bit of the negotiation process there, cuts down on the email correspondence, and then the 3D printing being as incredible as it is and the designers being where they are, we have finally opened commissions back up publicly for the first time in like 4 or 5 years now. So that is where Next Level Nerf is at. I'm terrified because I did it thinking it would be a small thing, and the orders have quickly gotten to the point where our lead time says on the website it'll be 2 to 4 weeks. And I can just feel right now that we're going to be pushing up against 4 weeks for a few of the orders that we have right now. And I'm like, oh no, what have I done to myself? I've made a horrible mistake.
Yeah, I mean, commission work's always a labour of love. I've never we've never really kind of out and out advertised that we take commissions. It's always just been through word of mouth or people that have came to us and said, hey, we really like what you do. Could you do this? Could you do that? And obviously our focus is cosmetic work, and that's what I really love doing. I've taken on kind of performance commissions here and there, but I'd rather just paint and dip and integrate and kind of do the cosmetic works for blasters.
Oh, we've got to jump in here real quick and just mention that the beard is its minutes, its moments are numbered here. We have reached our goal. We are over 2783 pounds now. Well done. The beard is gone, and we are moving quickly into our Archer musical rendition goal. So just a few more 100 pounds to get there, but I think we're all looking forward to watching the beard delete mod.
That's
and then
totally
just from
amazing.
that, we've got a few people offering slightly more money for a sniper in Drac colors. Still not quite where we're at. And then somebody is telling me that it's about time to buy more printers, and it probably is time to pick up a couple of Prusa minis, indeed, for the smaller bits, just to expand how many print hours we get out of man hours, for sure. I feel like I could talk to Al all day. I don't know what to talk about now.
Have you got anything new lined up?
Oh, yeah, that is actually.
Concentrate on what you've got just now.
I appreciate that you've reminded me there. So a few of us in the SENC are working on something that originally we called the Piranha. But of course, Slug has had a Piranha kind of out and about since 2015, 2016, and it was originally machined, so we didn't do anything with it. So I Googled fish with big teeth. I'm not ashamed to admit, I literally fish with big teeth, and immediately came up a fish that actually eats piranhas. Coming for you, Slug, called the Payara, which is colloquially referred to as the vampire fish. It's got these huge fangs. They're almost comically large compared to the size of its body. So the Payara is an SENC collaboration. It's taking elements from my good friend EOC, or Pat as he's known in our area. He's been doing a lot of work with a select fire circuit that's plug and play for a solenoid driver. I've been doing a lot of the work in terms of like the actual circuit building, ergo and testing, and functionality. And then a newer member, we have River. It's very exciting over here. We have to check what's going on outside about every 10 minutes or we'll lose our tiny schnauzer mind. But the Payara is a solenoid-driven bullpup blaster. A lot of the aesthetics have been done by River Bottom Studios, who's a graphic artist in our area. He's new to the SENC, but brilliant, very talented. Always has cool T-shirts because that's what I think his company does. But it's coming along nicely. We're on our 4th body iteration at this point, and we've actually been slowed tremendously because both River Bottom and myself have been printing PPE like everybody, and we didn't think about it, but we're with the exception of rolls of filament that are dedicated to orders right now, they've got little sticky notes on them for next level nerf. I'm running very low on what's it called, PLA. I am low on PLA for testing these prints. So we're on the 4th iteration and we've hit a bit of a wall, but we're about to print off the 5th version, which should have room for everything, and then we'll stitch that together. So that's the big thing that we're excited for, is we have our own blaster coming up very soon, and I'm pretty stoked to put up on the website. It's ready. Pardon?
Is that going to be exclusive to Next Level North?
At least at the beginning, but the components, the things that really make it special are going to be, particularly the drop-in select fire circuit, we're going to offer publicly. I don't know how we're going to do that, but if we offer it on our web store, it's such a small part that we'll probably send it to our usual suspects. It'll go over to Luke at Out of Darts and Michelle over at Foam Blast, and they'll be able to retail it as well. But the blaster itself for its first few units is going to be exclusive to NLN, but since we don't have to pay a what would you call it, a licensing fee to anybody for it, which all of our other blasters we do, we can sell it a little bit less than the hummingbird. So hopefully a few people pick it up and think that it's neat. Somebody's asking about Nyx cages. So I could sell Nyx cages through Next Level Nerf and Tooth and Nail through Next Level Nerf, but I have such amazing distribution through Luke and Michelle that the idea of going to the post office every other day to drop off a couple of them would pull me out of my workshop and make it harder to do what I'm doing right now. So I'm happy to let them keep doing that. And the V2 scabbard question is very exciting since I can't personally make the V2 scabbard. I am not doing that. If John Willis decides that that's something he's interested in, then maybe. But right now I'm very happy with where that project's at. But I think that that's about our time. We're going to wrap up. Just give you a brief update on the raffle. We're a little over 200 pounds away from our musical accoutrement from Archer of Women of Nerf. And we're about to break. I will no longer be your wonderful undead host of the evening. And instead, you're going to get the incredibly talented, the very properly British gentleman, Tom of Foam Data Service, talking about the growth of the hobby, which I can't think of anyone more qualified to talk about. He's been here for a while now, and he's gotten to see it go through some massive growth in his time, partially thanks to his guidance.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing what I do if it wasn't for Tom. So
I think he taught both of us to hydro dip, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
He's the old master.
Yes. Right, anyway, thanks for watching. And thanks for the donations, guys. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed hosting. Bye.